Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, my Dandavat pranams, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai. Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. So today is Friday, the 4th of July, 2025. And we're continuing with our Caitanya Caritamrta reading. Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadavaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Priya Sarupe, Dayata Sarupe, Prema Sarupe, Sahajavi Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhueka Rupe, Katana Rupe, Swavilasa Rupe. Anapita Chirim Chirat Karuna Varatino Kalo, Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam, Hari Purata Sundarata Tikatam Vasadipita, Sada Hridare Kandare Spuratu Vasachinandana. Yam Pravajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Matayo Taravo Binidustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Shiptasya Karmaditaranyamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karunavaratram Tato Mamanastikatyena Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Nayaman Charantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams and to the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev Adi-lila Pravishta Om Astotara Sarashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya-lila Pravishta Om Astotara Sarashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And again, my millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of our Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami and all our Rupanuga Guru Varg and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord. My Dandavat pranams to all of you. Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Papnivyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So now we've come to chapter 7, and it's like the culmination of the previous 6 chapters basically. We've been through establishing Guru initially, and then the identity of Mahaprabhu as being Krishna, and then the external reasons in the 3rd chapter, the internal reasons, confidential reasons in the 4th chapter. 5th chapter was Nityananda Prabhu, 6th was Advaita Acharya. Now it's as if we're putting all those chapters together, all that truth together, which represents Mahaprabhu. These 5 personalities, the most formidable, Vishnu Tattva, 3 of them, and 2 Shakti Tattva, and Jiva Tattva, 2 Shakti Tattva, one Gadadha and the other Jiva Tattva. So we're going through carefully and hearing about this topic deeply. So we've reached verse 25. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda Uchalila Prema Vanya Chodika Vedaya Stri Vrida Balaka Yuga Shabara Ubaya. The flood of love of Godhead swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women and children were all immersed in that inundation. And what is that flood? It's the storehouse of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes were very confidentially locked. Only Uddhav had an experience of that from outside of the we can't just say Brijvasis, just outside of the gopis, because the Brijvasis themselves the Madhurya mood and sweetness and speciality, Mahaprabhu is giving that in the form of Shuddha Bhakti. And principally, Advaita Acharya, Nityananda are directing everyone in that direction. But only the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, Sri Krishna, can actually give that understanding of Gopi Prem, because He was the recipient of it. He received the Prem from the Gopis. And this is what He actually wants to give. He wants to taste it Himself even. And He's giving it simultaneously. So this flood that we're hearing about now is a flood of Braja Ras, of Braja Prem. This is essentially what He's giving. Don't be thinking that it's just Shuddha Bhakti. It's Braja Prem entirely that is being given now, because it wasn't able to be given previously. Krishna, that wasn't His intention. Krishna's intention, He comes as this Lila Purushottam. He's tasting His Lila, His ecstatic Leelas in Vrindavan. He's the young prince of Braj, and He spends His entire time in Vrindavan, 10 years or so, just relishing the different sweetnesses of the Brajavasis' prem, particularly the gopis. But no one outside of Braj could taste this. And then Krishna leaves, and then it's Kurukshetra war, then it's so many politics with Hastinapur and killing demons, Jarasandha and so on, the Mathura pastimes. And the world saw this. This is what the world saw. Queen Kunti, the Pandavas, they saw this. But they heard a little bit, something, but as Queen Kunti says, she's bewildered when she hears that even Mother Yashoda can manage to bind Krishna. So they become bewildered by this Madhurya Prem. So it's this Madhurya Prem, specifically, that Mahaprabhu is relishing Himself, the love of the gopis for Him, and He's distributing this simultaneously. This is the phenomena about Mahaprabhu. It's all packaged here. So the flood of love of Godhead swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women and children were all immersed in that inundation. Everywhere those tidal waves were running. Purport. When the contents of the storehouse of love of Godhead is thus distributed, there is a powerful inundation that covers the entire land. In Sridhar Mayapur there is sometimes a great flood after the rainy season. This is an indication that from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the inundation of love of Godhead should be spread all over the world, for this will help everyone, including old men, young men, women and children. The Krishna consciousness movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so powerful that it can inundate the entire world and interest all classes of men in the subject of love of God. So that movement of Krishna consciousness is not just isolated to one particular society. ISKCON, for example. We understand, I'm not personally in ISKCON, although my Gurudev said all of the Gaudiya Math represents ISKCON. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said many times, if one stoops to the idea of sectarianism, oh, my group is better than your group, etc., this is the greatest disruptor of the truth. As soon as these party factions start to manifest, so there is one ISKCON, and that is that movement under Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it comes in many, many forms. Today on the Parikrama path I saw so many people with japamalas in their hands, bead bags. Where did all that come from? That's all come from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. None of them are ISKCON or the Gaudiya Math or anything. So it's all rippled out. So this rippling out effect is what is spoken about here, this inundation manifested throughout the whole world. And then the ISKCON society in particular carried it into the Western world, but now in the Western world it's also had that rippling effect where many hundreds of thousands of people are chanting Hare Krishna, and they're not necessarily affiliated with a particular institution or society, because you can't institutionalize bhakti. We've said many times, to try to institutionalize bhakti, you cut the wings. Bhakti is a liberated condition of the heart, spontaneous attraction to Krishna. And in any institution, you have to have a controlling factor. And how do you control? By one means, that's fear. That's how you control. The planet is being controlled by demons. How do they control it? By fear. They try and put the fear of God into you. And similarly, any institution that wants to maintain its status, so to speak, it has to go to that place. It has to use fearful tactics, so to speak. We'll give you a visa or we won't give you a visa, etc. If you align yourself with our society, and so on and so on and so on. So many different methodologies. In Jaiva Dharma in the beginning, the perfect situation was described. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the different Vaishnava groups in the different places, in Surabikund, in Kunj, in Nrsinghapalli, and in Kulia. Many Vaishnavas are there from different groups. So, but never we should move to this sectarian idea. So I wanted to mention that because Prabhupada is on fire for the spreading of this Krishna consciousness. This was written perhaps 1973, 74, and Prabhupada was just inundating the whole world with this Krishna consciousness through the spearhead of his society while he was alive. But now he's no longer physically present. Of course, he's present in all of his books and so on. But in the hearts of his devotees, if they turn to a sectarian mood, that's not what Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada wanted to support at all. So this very broad, open-minded gift of Mahaprabhu should be appreciated. It's not sectarian. So text 26. Sajjana durjana pangul jada anda gana prema vanaya daibala jagatera jana. Translation: the Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone, whether one be a gentleman, a rogue, or even lame, invalid, or blind. Why? Because it's this Sanatana Dharma to its extremity. It's about love towards the Lord. It's about the soul of every individual. It doesn't have any boundaries or borders. It's limitless. So it can spread very easily because of that mood. We see Mahaprabhu, he's considered the most non-conformist preacher. He's described like that by many authorities in that realm. The most non-conformist preacher. He didn't do anything according, because there was no institution to house his mission when he manifested. So the principle is love Krishna. This is the principle. This is the essence. How can we love Krishna? Yes, we follow the rules and regulations and so on. That is going to keep us clean. That is going to keep us sattvic. That is going to give us the proper environment to practice. But the essential truth is to gain the mercy of the Lord, like I described yesterday, this beautiful Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where Narada Muni, he's looking, who are the recipients of the greatest mercy? In other words, who are performing bhakti? Who is performing? And then it goes from a South Indian Brahmana, eventually it goes to Indra, Brahma, Shiva, Hanuman, Prahlad. So many different personalities. Comes to the Yadavas, then Uddhav, and then ultimately to the Brijbasis, and then ultimately the Gopis. So it's going through this. We have this progression in front of us, and all are performing bhakti to the limitations of their adhikar and the degree of the teachings that they've received. But they're all drowning and being inundated by this swelling flood of praying, but all to different degrees. It's not all one. Here again, it may be emphasized, purport, that although jealous rascals protest that Europeans and Americans cannot be given the sacred thread or sannyas, there is no need even to consider whether one is a gentleman or a rogue, because this is a spiritual movement. That's what I'm saying. It's a spiritual consideration, which is not concerned with the external body of skin and bones. It's beyond that. Because it is being properly conducted under the guidance of the Panchatattva,
who are so powerful. The Panchatattva collectively together, Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. This is such a powerful collection, the most powerful collection of personalities, strictly following the regulative principles, has nothing to do with external impediments. Text 27. Jagatu bila jivere hoile bija nasha, taha dekhi pancha janare parama ulasa. Translation. When the 5 members of the Panchatattva saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead and the seed of material enjoyment in the living entities completely destroyed, they all became exceedingly happy. Actually, this reminds me of the first chapter of the Adi-lila, where all the devotees, they gather and listen to the readings and from Srila Rupa Goswami in his Vidagdha Madhav and his Lalit Madhav, where he has captured the essence of Mahaprabhu's mission, the very inner core of his mission, Rupa Goswami. And he's speaking to all these senior personalities. Nityananda is there, Advaita Acharya is there, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is there, Haridas Thakur is there, Mahaprabhu is there listening to these teachings, Ramananda Roy is there, and all are completely astonished. This singular person, because Mahaprabhu is giving Manjari Bhav. So who is the greatest Manjari? It's Rupa Manjari. And she has understood exactly the mood of Mahaprabhu, what he wants to actually distribute and what he wants to taste. So when he's speaking these beautiful verses, what's that? Tunga Vidya, this Tunde, this beautiful verse. I want to find it. This in particular, Tunde Tandavini Ratim. It's on page 300 in here. This verse was spoken. This is what Mahaprabhu is distributing. And when all the senior Vaishnavas heard this Tunde Tandavini Ratim Vinute, Tandavali Labdaya, Karana Kroda Kadambini Gayate, Karana Budaya Spriham. He's saying, I do not know how much nectar the 2 syllables Krishna have produced. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We then desire many, many mouths. When that name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activity of the mind, and therefore all the senses become inert. Incredible. So Rupa Goswami, he's saying this in front of all the Vaishnavas. This is the inundation, the flooding, caused by the Panchatattva breaking open the storehouse. Purport. So I read the translation. Purport. I'll read it again. When the 5 members of the Panchatattva saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead and the seed of material enjoyment in the living entities completely destroyed, they all became exceedingly happy. Purport. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhasya that since the living entities all belong to the marginal potency of the Lord, each and every living entity has a natural tendency to become Krishna conscious, because we are by nature. We say this verse regularly, Kriti Satya Bhagat Satya Bhavsa Sadhanabhita, Nitya Siddhyasya, Nitya Siddhyasya, Nitya, eternally perfect, Nitya Siddhyasya Bhavasya, Prakritam Kriti Sadyate. Prakritam means in potential. We have that potentiality within us. All of us have that potentiality. So we want that to come out. Since the living entities all belong to the marginal potency, each and every living entity has a natural tendency to become Krishna conscious, although at the same time the seed of material enjoyment is undoubtedly within him. This is called tatashta. We are made of that tatashta. That completely makes up our consciousness, to go one way, to go the other way. We have the ability. In the spiritual world, the same potential is there, but there's no inclination whatsoever to go the other way. Even though the same opportunity is there, never for a single second will one look away from Krishna. So in this material world, and unfortunately we've all drank huge quantities of that material pleasure. So it's created a massive sanskar, and somewhere where we take refuge of, we take shelter of it, our material experiences, rather than taking shelter of the spiritual reality, because we haven't experienced sufficient spiritual reality to offset the material. Therefore, we have to practice more diligently. We have to fill ourselves with more literatures, more understanding, more harinam, more association, more seva. And it's that utsaha, that greed, that is going to carry us into the spiritual world. Without that, we cannot go into ragmarg. The principal ingredient of ragmarg is greed. Krishna bhakti rasabhavitamati kriyatotati labhate tatra lolyam greed, tatra lolyam api mulyam. How's it go? Tatra lolyam api mulyam jamake sukriti na labhyate. This verse. Greed. Although at the same time the seed of material enjoyment is undoubtedly within him. The seed of material enjoyment, watered by the course of material nature, that's what I'm saying, fructifies to become a tree of material entanglement that endows the living entity with all kinds of material enjoyment. As long as we keep touching that material pleasure, we'll keep adding to the material sanskar, which will add to the weight, to us going in the wrong direction constantly. To enjoy such material facilities, it is to be afflicted by the three material miseries. What are they? Adhyatmic, Adibautic, Adidevik. Adhyatmic, miseries caused by the mind. Adidevik, miseries caused by the devas, etc., the living entities. And Adhyatmic, Adidevik, Adibautic, miseries caused by other living entities. We will take all these very seriously and become depressed and unhappy about our material situation. However, when by nature's law there is a flood, the seeds within the earth become inactive. They can't sprout because they're flooded. If you flood an area sufficiently, the seeds, they can't sprout because they're maintained under the flood. They're still there in an embryonic sense. It's like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada flooded his disciples with that mood of enthusiasm towards Krishna, all of them. But then as soon as he left, that flood stopped affecting them. And gradually, those ancient seeds took root again and began to grow. Similarly, as the inundation of love of God spreads all over the world, the seeds of material enjoyment become impotent. Thus, the more the Krishna conscious movement spreads, that means internally as well as externally. We've got it spread. Prabhupada is, come to save the whole world, and he has. But also we should understand this, to come to save ourselves. Physician, heal thyself. That we are trying to flood with our infusion of Krishna consciousness these material seeds. If we wake early every morning, if we chant nicely, if we read nicely, if we perform parikramas, or we do so many spiritual activities in the day, there'll be no space for those seeds to germinate. Thus, the more the Krishna consciousness movement spreads, the more the desire for material enjoyment decreases. The seed of material enjoyment automatically becomes impotent with the increase of the Krishna consciousness movement. So on both fronts, in our distribution and in our development personally, both fronts must be going on. If you are performing some type of bhajan, you will naturally have a feeling of compassion to those who are just living in a two-dimensional world. You'll naturally want to touch them with something of value, because you'll see the absolute valueless nature of their lives. So you'll naturally want to encourage them to a higher state of consciousness. Instead of being envious, that Krishna consciousness is spreading all over the world. Prabhupada is talking about the rascals who criticize this movement. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, those who are jealous should be happy, as indicated here by the words Parama Ulas. But because they are Kanishta Adhikaris or Prakrita Bhaktas, materialistic devotees who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge. They are envious instead of happy, and they try to find faults in the Krishna consciousness movement. Yet, Srimad Prabodhananda Saraswati writes in his Caitanya Caritamrta that when influenced by Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement, materialists become averse to talking about their wives and children. Supposedly learned scholars give up their tedious studies of Vedic literature, and yogis give up their impractical practices of mystic yoga. Ascetics give up their austere activities of penance and austerity, and sannyasis give up their study of Sankhya philosophy. Thus they are all attracted by the bhakti yoga practices of Lord Chaitanya and cannot relish a mellow superior to that and they can't relish a mellow that is superior to that of Krishna consciousness. The Krishna consciousness taste. We even see when the first day we ever hear of chanting Hare Krishna, the first day we ever chant, immediately our lives actually become successful from that very point. But then we have to maintain, and we can maintain with association. If there's no association, it can become very difficult indeed. But today we even have the internet, etc., so anyone can associate in any way at any time. I'm doing these live streams now, and I've said yesterday, it can be going around the world. Anyone can be hearing these truths and associating with Caitanya Caritamrta, Srila Krishna's Kaviraj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. They are associating directly with these personalities by hearing this katha. Directly. He reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still in sound. Always the sound vibration. We have two ears, the Shruti, to hear. Text 28. Yate yata prema vristi kare pancha jane tata tata bade jale vyape tribhuvane. The more the five members of the Panchatattva cause the rains of love of God to fall, the more the inundation increases and spreads all over the world. So it's not something that's just momentary. It's constant, these rains are coming. Purport. The Krishna consciousness movement is not stereotyped or stagnant. I was just saying that. It's not conventional. Mahaprabhu himself is the most non-conformist preacher. It can't be stagnant, otherwise it's not a reality. If any society just becomes stagnant, it means there's no infusion of ecstasy in there. It's just static instead. It will spread all over the world in spite of all objections by fools and rascals that European and American mlechas cannot be accepted as brahmanas or sannyasis. Here is indicated that this process will spread and inundate the entire world with Krishna consciousness. It's Mahaprabhu's mercy. It's empowered specifically by Srimati Radharani. We've often said many times when there was a great dearth or emptiness of the preaching mission about the time after Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. For almost 100 years there were many Babajis practicing, but the actual spirit of preaching, of inundating the world had subdued. And then Radharani, she sees this, and it's her movement. So she throws her play lotus into this world. That play lotus is called a kamal. Kamal. So Kamal Manjari, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he picks up this mission and empowered this Gaura Shakti by Mahaprabhu. Then he just revamps the whole mood of this mission in the world in such an extraordinary way. Just one person, the seventh Goswami, by translating and writing particularly so many books for the welfare of the whole populace. He wasn't writing in Sanskrit. He was writing in common Bengali. And he was writing so many poems from his heart, Gita Vali, Gita Mala, so many Kalina Kalpa, Taru, so many incredible writings were performed. So it's Radharani. She is concerned that this mission, so if Radharani and Krishna collectively want this mission to go on, it will go on, regardless of the fools and rascals. Text 29 and 30.
Mayavadi karmi nishta kutarika gana nindaka pasandiyatta pudulya udama se saba mahadaksha dana palalaya se vanyata sabare kutite narila.
Translation. The impersonalists, fruitive workers, false logicians, blasphemers, non-devotees, and lowest among the student community are very expert in avoiding the Krishna consciousness movement, and therefore the inundation of Krishna consciousness cannot touch them. It's like the owls. The sun is shining everywhere, but the owl chooses to hide away from the sun. If you choose to hide away from the inundation, what can be done? But Mahaprabhu was not thinking like this. Mahaprabhu wanted to catch them. Purport. Like Mayavadi philosophers in the past, such as Prakashananda Saraswati of Benares, modern impersonalists are not interested in Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement. They do not know the value of this material world. They consider it false and cannot understand how the Krishna consciousness movement can utilize it. Yes, those Mayavads, they consider this world as false. The Buddhists, they think, oh, when you wake up to your spirit, all this will be negated and I'll come back into that sunyavad, voidistic mentality of the Brahman. Nothing is real here. But actually, it is real here, but it's temporary. This is the point. It is real, but it's temporary. It's only here for a little while. These bodies are only have a life duration, a very short life duration, and then they'll pass. They are so absorbed in impersonal thought that they take it for granted that all spiritual variety is material. This is the Buddhist he's talking about. And the hardcore impersonalists, they consider any type of variety to be something to do with the material, and therefore they shy away from it. They just want to sit on a hill in neutral zone of Shantaras, in nirvana, and consider everything else as fake. Because they do not know anything beyond their misconception of the Brahmajyoti, they cannot understand that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is spiritual and therefore beyond the conception of material illusion. They can't understand about the festivities connected with Krishna. In Krishna consciousness, we have practically a festival 3-4 times a week, more sometimes. Just in a couple of days, I think it's Sunday is Ekadashi, and then it's Guru Punim next week. The biggest festival practically, or biggest number of people will come, the beginning of Chatumasya, Sanatana Goswami's Tirabhav on that day, on Friday next week. Then it's Purnima. There will be, and we see here in this land of Vrindavan, that every single festival, even prior to the festival and after the festival, there are hundreds and thousands, even millions of people coming to observe this festival. They're dharmic, it's a dharmic nation. They understand. Perhaps they don't understand all the precepts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That will take time, but nevertheless, they're all serving in their capacity, the Lord, Sri Krishna. They're all theists. So to be in that environment is very fortifying and supportive of the devotee. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada wanted all his followers to come and spend time in India. And if you can't go there by body, then you go there by mind. But then it's said, where the mind and heart are going, the feet must follow. So it's not a big problem, really, to come into this holy land. Whenever Krishna incarnates personally or as a devotee, these Mayavadi philosophers accept him as an ordinary human being. This is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita, verse 9-11. Avajananti mam mudha manusim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta mahishwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Even Duryodhana, when he even witnessed the universal form, a partial manifestation, still he wanted to bind Krishna. How foolish. Duryodhana is a part of Kali Maharaj, so he hasn't got that vision. He's stuck in that one place. There are also other unscrupulous persons who exploit the Lord's appearance by posing as incarnations to cheat the innocent public. An incarnation of God should pass the tests of the statements of the Shastra and also perform uncommon activities. One should not accept a rascal as an incarnation of God, but should test his ability to act as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna also accepted him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for our understanding, Arjuna requested the Lord to manifest his universal form, thus testing whether he was actually the Supreme Lord. Similarly, we must test a so-called incarnation of Godhead according to the standard criteria. To avoid being misled by any exhibition of mystic powers, it is best to examine a so-called incarnation of God in the light of the statements of Shastra. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described in the Shastra as an incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, if one wants to imitate Lord Chaitanya and claim to be an incarnation, he must show evidence from the Shastra about his appearance and substantiate his claim. And we see in the life of Mahaprabhu, when Advaita Acharya, who is Mahavishnu himself, approached Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya, he understood this. And he wasn't 100% sure this is the personality of Godhead. I've grown up with this Nimai Pandit. I've seen him since birth. Yogamaya has covered Advaita Acharya. He's not quite sure, but he comes into that Srivasangam, and what does he see? As he approaches Srivasangam, the Lord, he manifests his universal form. It's described that there's not any space in the sky that is vacant. All the demigods are there, in their chariots rattling in the heavens, in the sky, in front of Advaita Acharya. He sees the entirety of the universal form. Advaita Acharya is completely spellbound with his wife, Sita Thakurani. And Mahaprabhu instructs, perform your puja. They brought all the ingredients, and then he performs this beautiful puja to that universal form. So Mahaprabhu, he's demonstrating this himself. But any imposter, and Prabhupada is writing this because he knows so many people will try to take advantage of innocent, misguided souls in the world, and try to proclaim that they are that Supreme Lord. There are many. In India, they call them God-men. They're busting them all the time. They usually fall down with some pretty 13, 14, 15-year-old girls, something like this, or they embezzle their fun. Usually pride. There's some glitch, there's something there that they become attracted to Maya, and then the law in India is familiar with these men, so they can quickly bust them. They have a history of it. Text 31 and 32.
Taha deki Mahaprabhu karina chintana jagadubate ami karilon yatana kahe e daila patanjana hoila banga tasaba dobaite pativa kucha ranga.
Seeing that the Mayavadis and others were fleeing, Lord Chaitanya thought, I wanted everyone to be immersed in this inundation of love of God, but some of them have escaped. Therefore I shall devise a trick to drown them all. How merciful is the Lord. Even they don't want it, he still wants them to have it. We are like that now. We try to run away in material pleasure, but still the Lord pursues us. We run away for 1 or 2 days or something, hide our heads in the phone or something like this, trying to run away from the Lord, but still the Lord won't let us go. Somehow or other, this demonstrates his absolute compassionate nature. Purport. Here is an important point. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to invent a way to capture the Mayavadis and others who did not take interest in the Krishna consciousness movement. This is the symptom of an acharya. An acharya who comes for the service of the Lord cannot be expected to perform to a stereotype. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada himself is going to explain. He's not performing stereotype activities. Actually, we are so fortunate because Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was never really in an institutional environment before he started this movement. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would go to the Gaudiya Mat functions, etc. And he was part of that Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. But he never really stayed in the temples until he was offered this sannyas ashram by Srila Bhakti-Vikrama Keshav Maharaj, and my Gurudev assisted. And then he stayed for some time in that month, but then almost immediately he went to Vrindavan and continued with his writing and his planning for his mission overseas. And he came completely alone. He didn't, if he had been with other devotees, he would have perhaps been pressured to conform more to the Gaudiya standards, etc. But because he was totally alone, in his life prior to beginning this movement, what was he doing? He was a salesman. He was traveling on trains across India, selling his chemical products. That's what he was doing. What do you do on a train? You talk to people. So he converses with the world in this mood, always relating to the people of the world and their absolute suffering. He wasn't away in some castle of sort of looking down on the general populace or anything like that. He was in the world, of the world. He was, of course, internally completely separate to that, understanding it in philosophy entirely. But he had that separateness. So when he went, just like the gopis, they ran alone. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ran alone to the Western world. No one helped him except my Gurudev sent mridanga, so many things like that. But there was no one else. So therefore he was able to unilaterally establish the principles that he wanted to. YouTube's just gone. So anyway, Facebook's going. We can't do anything. Let's come back. Sometimes jealous persons criticize the Krishna consciousness movement because it engages equally both boys and girls in distributing love of Godhead. Not knowing that boys and girls in countries like Europe and America mix very freely, these fools and rascals criticize the boys and girls in Krishna consciousness for intermingling. But these rascals should consider that one cannot suddenly change a community's social customs. However, since both the boys and girls are being trained to become preachers, those girls are not ordinary girls, but are as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. Therefore, to engage both boys and girls in fully transcendental activities is a policy intended to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. These jealous fools who criticize the intermingling of boys and girls will simply have to be satisfied with their own foolishness, because they cannot think of how to spread Krishna consciousness by adopting ways and means that are favorable for this purpose. Their stereotyped methods will never help spread Krishna consciousness. In other words, they have to be unconformist. Therefore, what we are doing is perfect by the grace of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, for it is he who proposed to invent a way to capture those who strayed from Krishna consciousness. Text 33. Etabali mani kicho kariya vichara sanyasashram prabhu kaile angikara. Thus the Lord accepted the sannyas order of life after full consideration. There was no need for Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to accept sannyas, for he is God himself, and therefore has nothing to do with the material bodily concept of life. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not identify himself with any of the 8 varnas and ashrams, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. He identified himself as the Supreme Spirit. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, or for that matter any pure devotee, never identifies with these social and spiritual divisions of life, not sectarianism. This is what I said in the beginning. It's not a sectarian flood that Mahaprabhu is inundating. It doesn't conform to that sectarianism. It conforms to the spirit soul directly itself. How can that spirit soul be attracted to Krishna consciousness? There was actually a story I can relate where Jayananda, that original great devotee in ISKCON, who would almost single-handedly arrange for the Rath Yatra festivals. He solicited all the devotees to work on the carts. He built these massive carts that had never been done before. and he was an empowered representative of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he had this same mood the whole time. He would accept practically anyone. And if they were a reprobate or a drug addict or something, he would try to curtail their addictions and employ them in the service of building. And once there was a man from Argentina, and he was a carpenter, but he drank. So Jayananda said, well, at least offer it to Krishna before you drink it. So this is what means out of the box. At least he's offering his cans of alcohol to the Lord before he... And this, of course, if you do that, then the Lord is going to be pleased with that and take away that taste for that intoxication. That will be the reciprocation. So Jayananda Prabhu was doing like that. So many, many stories about this great devotee, Jayananda Prabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or for that matter, any pure devotees, never identifies with these social and spiritual divisions of life. For a devotee is always transcendental to these different gradations of society. Nevertheless, Lord Chaitanya decided to accept sannyas on the grounds that when he became a sannyasi, everyone would show him respect, and in that way he would be favored. Although there was actually no need for him to accept sannyas, he did so for the benefit of those who might think him an ordinary human being. The main purpose of this accepting sannyas was to deliver the Mayavadi sannyasis. This will be evident later in this chapter. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada also knew he had to accept sannyas before he came to begin his mission. Otherwise he wouldn't have the same potency without that ashram. That ashram brings potency with it. No doubt that the embodiment of that Shakti Tattva will be riding with that person. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he understood that. So he took, as soon as he took that sannyas, practically a very short time afterwards, he made the arrangement with that Sindhu boat line to come to America. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has explained the term Mayavadi as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the material conception of life. A Mayavadi is one who considers the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, to be made of Maya, and who has also considers the abode of the Lord and the process of approaching him, devotional service, to be Maya. In other words, it's all material. It's all this material energy which the Mayavad thinks is fake anyway. And the Mayavad ultimately wants to be that Lord. They call themselves Dridara Narayan, poor Narayan. This is the Mayavadis, or the hardcore Mayavadis, they greet each other like that. It will be explained. The Mayavadi considers all the paraphernalia of devotional service to be Maya. Maya refers to material existence, and a Mayavadi is one who supports that material existence, which is characterized by the reactions of fruitive activities. Mayavadis consider devotional service to be among such fruitive activities. How tragic. According to them, when Bhagavat's devotees are purified by philosophical speculation, they will come to the real point of liberation and become God themselves. This is what they consider. Those who speculate in this way regarding devotional service are called Kutarikas, false logicians, and those who consider devotional service to be fruitive activities are called Karmanishtas. Those who criticize devotional service are called Nindakas, blasphemers. Similarly, non-devotees who consider devotional service to be material are called Pasandis, and scholars with a similar viewpoint are called Adharma Paduyas. These Kutarkas, Nindakas, Pasandis, Adharma Paduyas all avoided the benefit of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement of developing love of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt compassion for them, and it is for this reason that he decided to accept the sannyas order. For by seeing him as a sannyasi, they would offer him respects. The sannyas order is still respected in India. Indeed, the very dress of a sannyasi still commands respect from the Indian public. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas to facilitate preaching his devotional cult, although otherwise he had no need to accept the fourth order of spiritual life. So we accept this spiritual order of life for no other reason than to propagate this Krishna consciousness movement. There's no other reason for it. Text 34. Chabisha Vatsara Chila Grihasta Ashrama Panchavimsati Varse Kaile Yati Dharme. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained in householder life for 24 years, and on the verge of his 25th year, he accepted the sannyas order. Mahaprabhu stays in this world for 48 years. So 24 years, half his life, are engaged as a grihasta in a mood of lokik sambandha. His relationships with those in Navadvip was very, very sweet, was very pure. All those personalities in Navadvip. Navadvip and Vrindavan are the same. Navadvip is Gupta Vrindavan. So Mahaprabhu, in his first 24 years, was performing activities, tasting that Vatsalya Prem of Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata, his wife, in tasting the different relationships with all the devotees. It's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. He would walk in the street, he would stop at the milk vendor and drink milk and connect with him. He would stop at the cloth shop, connect with him, the flower shop, etc., the perfume shop. All these different merchants he would be connecting with in a very lokik sambandha, in a very familiar way. At the same time, he was a student, Nimai Pandit, but all his activities were very sweet, ultimately in Navadvip. So Navadvip is higher than Puridam, even though in Puridam he's there in the sannyas ashram only because his mother ordered him to go to Puridam. She requested him, you stay now in Puridam, it's very close to Bengal, you can come and visit every now and again, and people will come and go, so I'll hear about you. But when he's in Puridam, in that sannyas ashram, he's tasting predominantly this Vipralamba bath. But in Navadvip, he is tasting this milan, this union with his devotees. And there's many pastimes, like him taking the offerings from the young girls on the bank of the Ganga, his performing the naughty pastimes as a child, etc. This is like Nimai Pandit, this is like Krishna in his youth in Vrindavan. So Vrindavan is non-different to Navadvip, but Puri is more like Dwarka. Puri and Dwarka are synonymous because they're both Aishwarya Dhams. So Mahaprabhu was there for 24 years. In 1510, he's born in 1486. And in 1510, that means 24 years, he takes the sannyas ashram. Then he remains in Puri till 1534. That's when he's 48 years old. So exactly 50-50 of his lifespan. 24 years in meeting, we can say, and almost 24 years in tasting separation mood. Purport. There are 4 orders of spiritual life, namely Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, and in each of these ashrams there are 4 divisions. The divisions of the Brahmachari ashram are Savitra, Prajapatya, Brahm and Brihat, and the divisions of the Grihastha ashram are Varta, professionals, Sanchaya, accumulators, Salini, those who do not ask for anything from anyone, and Silochana, those who collect grains in the paddy fields. Similarly, the divisions of Vanaprastha ashram are Vaikanasa, Valakilya, Odambara, and Penaba, and the divisions of Sannyas are Kutichak, Bahudak, Hamsa, and Nishkarya, or we can say Paramahamsa. There are 2 kinds of sannyasis who are called Dhiras and Narottamas, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.13.26-27. At the end of the month of January in the year 1432, which is 1510 in our Christian calendar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas order from Keshav Bharati, who belonged to the Sankara Sampradaya, the Sankara Sampradaya was most prominent still after all the other Sampradayas had manifested. After Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, Nimbaditya and Ballavacharya, they had manifested their Sampradayas, but still the Sankaracharya mood of oneness, this Advaitavad, was very strong. So Keshav Bharati was actually from that. But Mahaprabhu, when he took sannyas, it's described that he actually whispers the sannyas mantra in the ear of Keshav Bharati before he takes the sannyas. He says, "Oh, are you going to give me this mantra?" And then he speaks the mantra in the ear, and then Keshav Bharati says yes, and then he gives him the mantra back. But that's actually how the mantra was transferred. Mahaprabhu gave it first. Text 35. That's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Text 35. Sanyas Korya Prabhu Kaile Akarshana Yateka Palanchalila Takilan Digana. Translation. After accepting the sannyas order, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu attracted the attention of all those who had evaded him, beginning with the logicians. Text 36. Puriya pasandi karmi nindakadiyata tara ase prabhupaya hoya avannata. Translation. Thus the students, infidels, fruitive workers, and critics all came to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Text 37. We're describing Mahaprabhu in 5 features. This is what this chapter is all about. So this is how Mahaprabhu is approaching his missionary duties by taking this sannyas ashram. Text 37. Aparada shamaila dubila premajal kabe ede by prabhura prema mahajal. Translation. Lord Chaitanya excused them all, and they merged into the ocean of devotional service, for no one can escape the unique loving network of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an ideal acharya. An acharya is an ideal teacher who knows the purpose of the revealed scriptures, behaves exactly according to their injunctions, and teaches his students to adopt these principles also. As an ideal acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu devised ways to capture all kinds of atheists and materialists. Every acharya has a specific means of propagating his spiritual movement with the aim of bringing men to Krishna consciousness. We've talked about this before. All our predecessors, they all have very unique characteristics and gifts to offer the world. We've already talked about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then Srila Gokishore Das Babaji had such a great gift to the world, to actually perform bhajan, to be niskinsha, to have nothing. Sometimes he even just lived under a boat. He had nothing, no material possessions. And then Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, so erudite, the most erudite in our Guru Varga, learned Shruti Dara, learned in all the scriptures. And then we have all the acharyas after him. Bhakti Dvait Madhav Maharaj, such an individual, unique personality. Srila Pramod Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj. All these personalities, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, they all had their very much individual natures, and they brought their individual jewels to the table. Therefore, the method of one acharya may be different from that of another, but the ultimate goal is never neglected. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends, Tasmat Kanabi Aipayan Manaha Krishna Nivesate Sarve Vidi Nisheda Syur Etayor Eva Kinkaraha. An acharya should devise a means by which people may somehow or other come to Krishna consciousness. First they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later gradually be introduced. So first they should become aware that Krishna is that Supreme Lord. This is specifically in the Western worlds, where they didn't even know God, and still they're not honoring God in many places. So the first requisition is to plant the seed of devotion to the Lord. And then the various rules and regulations can be incorporated after that. And that famous example often makes me chuckle when one Gaudiya sannyasi was visiting Prabhupada and was seeing these new boys and girls who had only been for a few weeks, and one was guarding Prabhupada's door when the sannyasi came, and he was putting on tilak, but he had no more water, so he spat in his hand to make the tilak. And this sannyasi complained to Prabhupada. He was horrified, the sannyasi complained to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "Don't worry, they have just come wiping the meat from their faces. You don't know where they've come from. Be merciful. He will learn in time." And of course they did learn in time. An acharya should devise a means by which people may somehow or other come to Krishna consciousness. First they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later gradually be introduced. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we follow this policy of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. For example, since boys and girls in the Western countries freely intermingle, special concessions regarding their customs and habits are necessary to bring them to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was very aware that in the Gaudiya Math, the women were not allowed to stay there. I can remember when Umadidi, our beloved personality in our Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, when she was first living in that Keshavji Gaudiya Math, she had such a hard time from all the devotees, because in India it wasn't necessary to allow women into, but she was so enthusiastic to be with my Gurudev that she came into, and my Gurudev agreed to give her a room. But she was like, I saw it was like hell for her. Practically every few weeks they would move her room to another one. "Oh, we need this room straight away for a festival. Get out, go to this room." And she would go in these different rooms just immediately with a little kerosene stove and so on that she would cook. And she had so much difficulty, but she just tolerated all that. She was a very special lady, but no other ladies could live in the math. So Prabhupada was understanding this. That's why he's writing these purports. He's expecting criticism from his godbrothers. Why are you allowing ladies to live in the math? The acharya must devise a means to bring them to devotional service. Therefore, I am a sannyasi. Therefore, although I am a sannyasi, I sometimes take part in getting boys and girls married, although in the history of sannyas, no sannyasi has personally taken part in marrying his disciples. Text 38. Shabanistarite Prabhu Kripa Avatara, Sabanistarite Kare Chaturi Apara. Translation: Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, appeared in order to deliver all the fallen souls. That's the principle. Therefore he devised many methods to liberate them from the clutches of Maya. Purport: it is the concern of the acharya to show mercy to the fallen souls. In this connection, Desha, Kala, Patra, the place, the time, and the object, or time, place, and circumstance, should be taken into consideration. Since the European and American boys and girls in our Krishna consciousness movement preach together, less intelligent men criticize that they are mingling without restriction. In Europe and America, boys and girls mingle unrestrictedly and have equal rights. Therefore, it is not possible to completely separate the men from the women. However, we are thoroughly instructing both men and women how to preach, and actually they are preaching wonderfully. Of course, we very strictly prohibit illicit sex. Boys and girls who are not married are not allowed to sleep together or live together, and there are separate arrangements for boys and girls in every temple. Grihastas live outside the temple, for in the temple we do not allow even husband and wife to live together. The results of this are wonderful. Both men and women are preaching the gospel of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna with redoubled strength. In this verse, the words Shaba Nishtarite Kare Chaturi Apara indicate that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to deliver one and all. Therefore, it is a principle that a preacher must strictly follow the rules and regulations laid down in the Shastras, yet at the same time devise a means by which the preaching work to reclaim the fallen may go on with full force. If the Western devotees had to contend with secularism between men and women in the temples, Prabhupada would have lost half of his energy. It wouldn't have worked. It would have just become so bizarre for them. Yet he relaxed the whole situation and just made it very peaceful. If you're trying to maintain a whole group of men separate to women and you're constantly trying to make these boundaries, everyone's going to be agitated by it. But if you just chill out and relax on it and give quarters for the men and quarters for the women, it can be very simply arranged and there's no agitation. You take the agitation out of it. But if you try to stress on it and to make a big deal about it, which is what the traditional Gaudiya devotees were complaining about, then, no, I'm just finishing now. Then it would have made the situation worse. Oh, YouTube, stop. So we'll stop here at verse 39 and continue again on Monday. So, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in 5 features ki jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Go Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Gaurandi, Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuevcha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namo. Gaurandi, Hari